A long time ago, in a quiet little village, there lived a man named John. He was a kind and hard-working man. Everyone in the village liked him because he was honest, helpful, and respectful. John loved his mother, Grace, very much. Grace was old now, but when John was a child, she had done everything for him. She cooked for him, looked after him when he was sick, and always made sure he had food to eat and clothes to wear. John never forgot how much his mother had given up for him. One day, while working in the city, John met a young woman named Emma. She was full of energy and had a bright smile that made John feel happy right away. Emma was everything John had ever wished for. She was smart, confident, and always made him laugh. They spent a lot of time together, and after a few months John asked Emma to marry him. She said yes, and John felt like the happiest man in the world. After they got married, John brought Emma to his village. He wanted her to live with him and his mother, Grace. At first, everything was good. Grace welcomed Emma warmly and tried to make her feel at home. Emma smiled a lot and seemed happy. But after some time, things started to change. Emma began to feel uncomfortable in the house. She didn't like how Grace spoke to her sometimes. She felt like Grace was always watching her or judging her. Slowly, Emma started getting upset more often. One evening, John came home from work. He was tired and hungry after a long day. He hoped to eat something warm and rest. When he stepped into the house, he saw Emma sitting on the couch. She looked upset, and the whole house felt tense. "Emma," John said softly, "I'm really hungry. Could you please bring me something to eat?" Emma didn't look at him. She crossed her arms and said, "There's no food." John was surprised. Usually Emma cooked dinner while his mother rested. "What do you mean there's no food? Why not?" he asked gently. Emma stood up, her face red with anger. "Your mother is the reason," she said loudly. "She was rude to me today. She called me lazy and useless. I can't stay in this house anymore." John was shocked. "What did she say?" "Maybe she didn't mean it, Emma. She's old. Sometimes she says things without thinking." But Emma didn't care. "I don't care how old she is," she shouted. "I hate her. I won't live with her any longer." "You need to choose, John. It's either me or your mother." John felt his heart sink. He couldn't believe what Emma was saying. He loved Emma, but his mother had been with him all his life. She had raised him, cared for him, and now she needed him. That night, John couldn't sleep. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was full of thoughts. What was he supposed to do? He loved Emma. She was young and beautiful. If she left him, maybe he would never find someone like her again. But how could he leave his mother behind? The woman who had given up everything for him. The next morning, John sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands. He felt lost and broken. Emma walked into the room. She stood in front of him, looking strong and serious. "John," she said, her voice cold, "you know what you have to do. I'm young and beautiful. You'll never find someone like me again. If you want me to stay, you have to make a choice. I won't live like this." John looked up at her. His eyes were full of sadness. He didn't know what to say. Deep down, he knew he couldn't leave his mother, but he also didn't want to lose Emma. Later that day, John made a terrible decision. He decided to take his mother to the hills and leave her there. He had heard of people doing that when they couldn't take care of their old parents anymore. It was a cruel and heartless thing to do, but John felt like he had no other choice. He told his mother they were going for a walk, and Grace smiled. She was happy to spend time with her son. And so they left the house together and started walking up the narrow, winding path toward the hills. John and his mother Grace left the house and started walking up the steep hill outside the village. The path was rough and narrow. As they went higher, John felt worse and worse. His chest felt tight. Grace was old and walked slowly, holding his arm to keep steady. But she didn't complain once. She just walked beside him, quiet and calm. After a long time, they reached the top of the hill. The wind blew gently through the trees. John stood there, his heart beating fast. He didn't know how to say what he had come to do. He looked around, trying to find the courage to speak. Before he could say a word, Grace looked up at him. Her eyes were soft and full of love. She smiled a little and said, "Be careful, son. I know why you brought me here. You don't have to explain. Just be safe on your way down." John felt his heart break into pieces. He remembered everything his mother had done for him when he was little. How she fed him, cared for him when he was sick, and worked hard so he could have a better life. Tears filled his eyes. He couldn't do it. He couldn't leave her here alone. As he stood there on the quiet hilltop, memories came rushing back. He remembered her singing him to sleep, telling him stories when he was sad, and holding him during storms when he was scared. The wind whispered through the trees, but all he could hear was her voice from years ago. A heavy pain sat in his chest. How could he even think of leaving her? His mother, who had always been there for him, now stood quietly by his side. Her old hands held his arm gently. She wasn't angry. She didn't yell. She just stood there, as if she already knew how he felt. "Son," she said softly, "I know life hasn't been easy, and I know Emma is your wife. You have a lot to carry. But I'm your mother, and mothers don't leave their sons, even when they're old. Don't worry about me. You've done enough." John felt a deep shame hit him. How could she still be thinking of him, even now, when he had brought her up here to leave her? His mouth felt dry. His thoughts were a mess. He had been so scared to lose Emma, but now he realized he could never do this to the one person who had never left his side. Suddenly, more memories came to him. Nights when she sat by his bed, when he had fevers. Days when she went hungry so he could eat. Times she made him laugh even when life was hard. She had given him everything, and now he was about to throw her away. He dropped to his knees, crying hard. His hands covered his face. He didn't care who saw. Grace knelt beside him. She didn't speak. She just stayed there, her presence calm and loving. She didn't need to say anything. Her love said it all. "I'm sorry, Mom," John whispered through his tears. "I don't know what I was thinking. I can't do this. I can't leave you." Grace reached out and gently touched his hair, just like she did when he was a boy. "It's okay, son. I understand. You're in a tough spot. But remember, love isn't about picking between people. It's about finding a way to care for everyone, even when it's hard." John listened to her words. They were soft, but they stayed with him. She wasn't asking him to choose between her and Emma. She only wanted him to understand that real love is about patience, not giving up. After sitting quietly for a while, John stood up. He helped his mother to her feet. He knew he could never leave her. No matter what Emma said, he couldn't do it. Grace had given him life. Now it was his turn to care for her. As they walked back down the hill, John felt heavy inside. He knew there would be trouble waiting at home. Emma had said clearly she wouldn't stay if Grace stayed. But John had made his choice. He would try to find a way to protect both of them. When they got back to the village, the sun was setting. The houses looked warm in the golden light, but John's house felt cold and tense. As soon as they stepped inside, Emma was waiting. She stood in the middle of the room, arms crossed, face stiff. "John," she said sharply, "I've been waiting for hours. Where were you?" John took a deep breath and helped Grace sit down. Then he turned to Emma. "We went for a walk," he said quietly. "I needed time to think." Emma's eyes narrowed. "Think about what? Did you make your decision?" John's heart beat loudly in his chest. This was it. He looked her in the eye. "Yes, I did," he said. "I love you, Emma. But I also love my mother. I can't choose between you, and I won't." Emma's face twisted in anger. "What are you saying, John? I told you. Either she goes or I do. You can't have both." John felt a deep sadness. He had believed Emma was the perfect person for him, but now he could see how different they were. Her beauty and charm didn't matter if she couldn't understand love. "I'm not sending my mother away," he said. "She raised me. She gave everything for me. I can't turn my back on her now." Emma's face turned red. She grabbed her things and started packing. "Then that's it. We're done. You're choosing her over me. I won't stay another minute." John stood silently as she moved around the house. throwing clothes into her suitcase. His heart ached, but he knew this was the right thing. Grace sat quietly in the corner, her eyes wet with tears. She didn't speak. Emma slammed the door and walked out into the night. The house was still. The silence was deep. But for the first time in a long time, John felt calm inside. He had chosen the kind of love that lasts. He walked over to Grace and knelt beside her. "I'm sorry, Mum," he said softly. "I should never have doubted you." Grace smiled through her tears and touched his cheek. "You did the right thing, John. Real love is about giving. You'll find your way. And one day, you'll meet someone who understands."